Then, once they invite us in, once we have permission, strengthen them, which is virtually to heal them, because that's what he told them to do. Once we have gotten to know our neighbor and begun serving or blessing them, we will become acquainted with their hurts, needs, and wants. In Luke 10, Jesus instructed them to heal those who were needing healing, spiritually via deliverance from evil spirits and physically from sickness. Now, most modern believers face a great struggle when it comes to divine healing. It's not that we're against it, generally. I don't know too many people are against it, although I will say this. It has been my experience that laying hands and praying for Christians sometimes, I feel a resistance that I don't feel from non-Christians. And part of that is because we've either been taught or come to believe it on our own that it's just not going to happen for us. It's not for today. I don't know why God doesn't heal everybody every time. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I just know that he heals nobody unless at least I attempt. At least I'm out there. At least I make a fool of myself many times and pray for the sick. But at least I've seen a lot of people that did get well.
Yeah.
So my deal on this is the Michael Jordan School of Prayer. When I criticized Michael Jordan for his lack of percentage, his shooting percentage was pretty bad actually for his career, he said, well, this thing I know. I missed every shot I didn't take.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I approach divine healing. Now, I've gotten a lot better at it because I will tend to pray before I pray now. I don't pray for everybody the same way. And if somebody comes that's ill, I ask God, do you want to do something? Is there something special with this one? And what I've learned is he will give me profound empathy, not to the point of sharing their symptoms, but the point of where my heart is broken. And I can't think of a reason why he doesn't want to heal them. And generally, when I have that sensation and I pray, something happens.
Wow.
But it took 30-some years to figure that out. So doesn't mean anybody else will have to take that long. But if you don't, at least hang it out. And here's another thing. You won't see in the book of Acts where they prayed for anybody to get well. They commanded people to get well. The difference in the level that we live is that pathetic. We close our eyes and beg God to do something and open them and hope he did. They didn't. They stretched out their hand and said, be well, be healed. Jesus never begged God. He commanded sickness and it obeyed him. That's how far we are from, again, being New Testament Christians that we all think we are. We got a long ways to grow here.
It's an interesting point that sickness and death is a result of sin. And we're not petitioning God to do something that he already designed as perfect. We're taking dominion over the sin that exists in the world by praying over people who are sick.
Which is the kingdom.
That's a whole perspective.
And the reason he
shift
gave
that
that, it was one of the manifestations of the kingdom, to know that the kingdom has come near you. If you don't see anything, how do you know the kingdom has come near you? A lot of people, an idea has come near them, and they believe the idea, which is admirable. It's just not enough. You can't change the world with just the thought of Jesus. You have to have the real thing. And again, this is why so many times we don't get traction in our churches and groups in a way that is really, wildly satisfying for some of us, because we're not seeing the kingdom manifest. Okay, so the whole issue is we need to attempt at least, and I like praying for unbelievers for healing better than believers personally, and I think that if you do it, you'll find the same thing to be true. And I can't remember anybody. I have Christians that have said they didn't want me to pray for them and lay hands on them. I can't remember ever an unbelieving person saying, don't pray for me, ever. So they're going to be open to that kind of thing. And you know what, guys? You just got to wade out into the water and do it. I mean, it's not like someday you're going to get a special revelation and, this is going to work every time. It's not like that. This is like everything else in the kingdom. You got to learn to stretch and risk. And God rewards risk. That's faith. Finally, now how many of you think if you go and you meet people and you serve them and then you heal them, do you think maybe then they're open to what you got to share about Jesus?
Amen.
Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just cramming Jesus on them. Yeah. And that's the way most of us are taught to be witnesses. Well, you got to share your faith. It's not anything about helping them or loving them or blessing them. You share your faith. That's the ultimate love. Sometimes not. Sometimes showing them a little something first. And it's been my persuasion, totally, that if the disciples came back today, they would look at us and say, with that little evidence, you all believe? They would be in shock. Because they saw wild miracles, and they had a big problem believing. They saw Jesus resurrected, and it says at the end, some of them still didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more, right?
Yeah.
Now, God's grace is amazing, and He allows us to believe with just the tiniest mustard seed faith, but He doesn't expect us to live there. He expects us to keep moving on into the kingdom and experiencing things in the kingdom. And it's a big kingdom. You're not going to run God up against a wall someplace and take something from Him He doesn't want to give you anyway, so why not wade in deeper? So after you've done these things, then present the good news to them. Getting to know someone, blessing and healing them, all came in Jesus' instructions prior to actually preaching or sharing the good news with them. It's pretty easy to see why the order is important. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This does not diminish the sharing. It prepares them for it. Sharing the saving message of Christ is always the objective. I call it lingering with intent. Of course it's an agenda. I don't serve people for nothing. I don't bless people for nothing. I don't work hard for nothing. I don't sacrifice for nothing. I sacrifice expecting that something good is going to happen, because that's the order that God has laid this thing out. Community groups are perhaps the greatest and most natural birthing rooms for new believers, simply because of their ability to demonstrate the gospel rather than just proclaim it. In a smaller setting, the only setting the church had for its first 300 years, believers are easier to observe. And people want to observe us. If we never get around to sharing the truth about Christ with people, we aren't seeking first God's kingdom rule, which is basic to all we do if we want to experience the fulfillment of His promise for provision, contentment, and joy.